We've all had moments that break us down, searching for light when the world spins round. But in those cracks, the purpose is born, a new way to live when the old is torn. It's more than a story, it's the rise from the fall, a place where your purpose starts to call. With Dr. Stephenson, wisdom takes flight, turning your pain into hope, into light. Collide with purpose, embrace the change. Every story's got a fire in its flame. Tune in, listen, find your way to take life's hardest hits and turn the page. In the podcast, the truth is found. Collide with purpose, let love abound. From heartbreak to strength, the lessons unfold. It's about how we rise, not the stories we've told. Guests with their journeys, sharing their light. In every collision, there's power in sight. It's more than a talk, it's the wisdom we gain through every struggle, through every pain. With conversations that open the door to purpose, to power, to so much more. Collide with purpose, embrace the change. Every story's got a fire in its flame. Tune in, listen, find your way to take life's hardest hits and turn the page. In the podcast, the truth is found. Collide with purpose, let love abound. So come as you are, with your scars and fears. This is the place where the truth appears. Turn your trials into stepping stones. Find the strength to cling your throne. Collide with purpose, embrace the change. Every story's got a fire in its flame. Tune in, listen, find your way to take life's hardest hits and turn the page. In the podcast, truth is found. Collide with purpose, let love abound. A collision with purpose, your journey starts here. In every conversation, we'll wipe away fear. Find your purpose, let your life ignite. With Dr. Stephenson, you'll find your light.
All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you're joining us from today. Welcome. Welcome to Life-Changing Conversations to Inspire Actions, a platform built on the belief that conversations should not only inspire thought, they should inspire transformation. I am Dr. Laxley. Today, we are addressing something that affects families, communities, and entire generations. We're talking about emotional and mental health. Many people are functioning but not healing, smiling but silently struggling, successful outwardly while privately carrying emotional wounds. And the truth is simple. When trauma is ignored, it does not disappear. It quietly shapes our decisions, relationships, and communities. Today's conversation is about breaking silence, confronting emotional wounds, and building stronger, healthier communities. My guest today is Dr. Loraine J. Smith, a licensed professional counselor, national certified counselor, and certified clinical mental health counselor, whose work centers on trauma-informed care, emotional healing, and community advocacy. Her career spans community social service, psychiatric care, diaspora leadership, and cross-cultural mental health work throughout the United States and the Caribbean. She is the founder of Solutions for You Counseling and Consulting Services and the Loraine J. Smith Foundation, initiatives dedicated to emotional wellness, education, and community empowerment. Dr. Loraine J. Summit, welcome to Life-Changing Conversations to Inspire Actions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Laxley, for having me. Thank you. Thank you again.
Wow, it's so good to see you on the platform. I've been wanting you on here for a minute.
Oh, yes. You know how busy my schedule is. So I had to cancel everything in the afternoon on a Wednesday.
Right, in the afternoon on a Wednesday, right? What a time, right?
Yeah, I'm so
Peak
excited to
hours.
be yes. And
So,
especially when
I appreciate you for doing that, by the way. All
oh,
right.
yeah.
So how you
doing? Yes.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's a Wednesday, but I'm doing great. Taking the pulse and say yes, I'm good. I'm good. But I appreciate it, and it's such a great time to talk about trauma and mental health and everything that we do and the diaspora. You know, all the topics that are so important.
And so important to you, of course, because you're so involved. Just looking at your bio and the amount of things that you do here in the diaspora and in Jamaica, and in
Yes,
the Caribbean, for that matter. So much.
absolutely, absolutely. Yes.
I guess the question is, where do you find the time?
You know, quite uniquely, that is not the first time that question is always asked. But um, if all that you do is what you love, you will never work a day in your life. And everything that I do is what I love, and more. And I always find time to take a nap. You know, even
Mm.
I would more than likely find a time to take a nap, a power nap. Because I do probably will work tonight until maybe 8 o'clock. I do find the time, and I do write as well. I do all the work that I do. I love, as you know, I love to travel, but everything I do is what I love. So,
That thing about the nap is important. Tell us why that is so important. Taking that nap is so important.
it is important to take a nap, and as we know, some culture a nap is mandatory. Everything is shut down, and you take a nap, and then you restart for the rest of the afternoon. The nap um, helps you to actually restart the end of the afternoon. It helps your cells to recreate. It helps your emotions to recreate, and it helps you both medically and emotionally. It prevents burnout, of course. We do know scientifically it does, and medically it does. Um, and we see where your lifespan is lengthened. So I adapt a nap into my lifestyle. So, yeah.
So, and that's a daily thing for you. But let me ask you one more thing about the nap thing, because I'm going through that, because that's an area where I need to do some work. Is it that you must be very intentional about it? You must almost have scheduled it, so this is what I'm going to do, and not just fall asleep.
So how I do my nap, and it's really every day is different. So it depends on the schedule and what's going on. I'll do a 15-minute nap, sometimes a 20-minute nap. And each day, the nap, it could be 1 o'clock, it could be 2 o'clock, it could be 3 o'clock. It's not the same time every day for me. So, and some people, it's different. It may be the same time every day. I know for some folks that I work with, they do it. They will take the nap and go. They'll take their lunchtime and do the nap in their car, and that's something we work on as a part of their self-care. So, as you said, it can be an intentional thing, while it can be a part of your mindfulness. So it's how it works for you. So I don't regimentally say this is what you need to do. You need to kind of figure out what works for you.
And that's the key, right? What works for
Works for you. Yeah.
And talking about what works, many people see the professional titles and accomplishments, but behind every healer is a story that shaped their mission. Doc, what personal experiences made emotional healing non-negotiable for you?
I'm going to take a big sigh. So there are several experiences, and I'll start with the the beginning and go to the end, because there's a beginning, middle, and end. Starting from as a child, growing up in Jamaica and with a mom who was very ill, and not by choice, as my mom would say. She didn't go to the supermarket to buy, but my mom, who later on in life found that she had a spinal cord disorder. I never saw my mom without pain, and even as early as going to all age school, I would see my mom with pain and would instantly step in to take care of my mom, leaving her a glass of water. And you will see this in my memoir, having that natural sense to take care of my mom. And I did that, all through my life until the end, when my mom, passed on. And then, so that gave me the experience of my own emotional healing that I needed when I became sick myself. When I later on in my own life learned that I had fibromyalgia, when I just had my own continuous pain, consistent pain that I couldn't get rid of, when I couldn't get out of bed. And folks will see me live a life now that looks like a life that looks like I have, the everlasting energy, like we talk about, but and the credentials and the life of someone, and you say, where do you get all the energy from? But I had to figure it out. I had to figure it out at some point, but because there was a time when I literally would go to work, when I was doing even my hours, as we know, as a LAC, and I would go to work, had a full load 1 week, and the next week I would be totally paralyzed in bed because of how fibromyalgia was. And so I had to figure out, is it what I was eating, or is it the stress level? How could I manage? And so over the years, and then there was a time when I realized that just the stress of living was what was just keeping me at that threshold of pain. And not only was I in bed, but I looked like my pain. The pain was on me, and I looked like pain. If you saw me, I looked like pain. So those experiences brought me to a place where my emotional healing, I had to get that to that place. And I remain in that place where stress, it's not an option. I don't do stress. And when I say don't do stress, it's not because I don't experience stress. I don't live in the land of stress. I don't live in the land of woe is me. I don't live in the land of, so we're not going to figure it out. Okay. We will have to figure it out. I don't live in the land of, as I say, we have to find ways you have to find ways to consistently take care of yourself.
It's so important.
Yes.
No matter what, you have to find ways to take care of yourself. You must get out of that place.
It's a non-negotiable part of who I am. Yes.
And talking about non-negotiable, your career began in community social services before moving into clinical counseling. Was there a moment early in your career that permanently changed how you understood trauma?
Absolutely. So, working in psychiatric, inpatient psychiatric unit, and there's a smile on my face because there's some funny moments, and there's some moments that were very serious when I work in inpatient psych unit that included a military inpatient psych unit as well. And so what I saw was individuals who, as we would say, were very emotionally sick, and individuals who are coming home from the military, being active military, posted out to different wars, coming home, and also veterans and also family members. So on those units, you would see individuals who would have um, either suicidal, attempted and failed suicide, who would be on the IC units. And so what you see are traumas that were never taken care of, or PTSD. And so what that did for me was to give me the opportunity to say, listen, mental health is not just the schizophrenia or the bipolar or the anxiety disorder, but it's the deep rooted traumas that would have occurred and were never taken care of, or the episodes that we see from failed relationships that every single year we would see individuals that we know. Christmas, are we going to see so and so coming in? And one of the things that I learned is never say quiet. Oh, it's so quiet tonight. Oh, geez. One night I said that. Oh, it's such a quiet night. And then I jinx everyone, like, whoa. A few minutes later, there's like 5 individuals on the unit, and they're like, "You're the reason why that happened, because you're so quiet tonight." Or I went to one night and I said, I saw so and so at the bus stop this morning, and they're like, 2 days later, that person is in the unit. Because what keeps happening is that every single season, whether it's Christmas or Easter, you have folks who have these episodes, and you see them coming in our units from those traumatic situations that are just repeating and repeating. And so that led me to become the trauma professional that I am today, because I came to the realization that mental health is deeper than what I learned in school. I had to go back and really kind of become who I am today.
In the school of life.
In the school of life. And I continue to go back to school, of course.
You're living there, I would imagine. You live in that school. So Dr. Loraine, when people hear the word trauma, they often think of extreme situations, right? But trauma can also be quiet, subtle, and normalized. What are the most common forms of trauma people dismiss or normalize, especially in our community, in the Caribbean and diaspora communities?
Childhood trauma. That's for me, other folks may have something different, but and especially showing up in the adult world, when you look at most adult, it's the childhood trauma that never thought of, or is neglected, that never was attended, that someone is sitting across from you and it's sabotaging everything in their life, whether it's their job, their relationship, the little child in them that was never that was hurt, but that was never attended to. That we always take for granted, the hurt, the pain, never addressed. Those situations, and those simple situation or bigger situation, those and especially in the Caribbean, or amongst us as Black and brown people, as we say today, those are the hurt and pain that are tripping us up.
And it's everywhere. It's even those of us who wouldn't want to admit it and acknowledge it's there, because trauma rarely stays hidden. Even when it's unspoken, it tends to show up in everyday behaviors and relationships. So Doc, how does that unresolved trauma quietly appear in parenting, in leadership, in marriages, or even professional success?
So I'm going to start with the parenting. How does it show up in parenting? How do we speak to our child? How do we love our child? Do we praise them, or do we criticize them, or do we call them the names that we never even gave them? Do we rename them during the critical moments when we should be saying, so and so, I love you, you did well today? Or do we today we have different types of parenting. We're hearing you have a gentler parenting. Um, we learn how to parent differently. From when we parent from a traumatic standpoint, all we know is to parent from a whooping standpoint.
Mm.
The past generation parent like that. When we are in a leadership standpoint, even we see it from the pulpit. I'm going to do it like that. From a traumatic, we chastise people rather than lead people in a gentle way. Marriages are failing because someone will say, I can't, that word compromise, I don't do it. um, I do not want a partner. I do not want to um, submit. Like for example, we're talking about female versus male. I don't want to work with you together as a team. Professionally, will sabotage our relationship. Um, and I'll speak from a um, relationship standpoint. We will also trauma bond
Mhm.
as well. So, in other words, the trauma will come like a butter, I will say, across everything in our life. And so instead of we being successful in the different areas, it just kind of sabotage and just you will find that someone even come to you and say, "There's nothing in my life is working."
Mm.
And you look at the parenting, the job, the relationship, everything is breaking down. I'm not happy in myself. And then you look and you said, so when you do, like, if we talk about the ACE assessment, when you do the ACE assessment, it started out with the childhood trauma, and you see that coming down. So when we talk about the head is dirty. When we talk about the childhood trauma, runs down into the adult life, and that's where you find all the situation going wrong. Not knowing how to have simple conversation, even a regular conversation that could have been dealt with in terms of fixing it, the conflict, the conflict
Mm.
resolution. You can't handle those conflicting situation that you can resolve with simple um, solutions, communication. Um, money issues in marriages are not easily resolved because of the conflict, the trauma in from childhood days. So it
Mm.
affects everything in
You
essence.
know, I'm listening to you talk about trauma, and I'm thinking of going to school, attending school in Jamaica when I
Yeah.
did. And one of the approach that was commonly used is that strap or that cane.
Mhm.
What did that do to us as students back then? When we talk about trauma, that thing, spare the rod, spoil the child nonsense.
Mhm.
That was serious abuse. And talk about trauma. And many, I was talking to a friend of mine, and they saw someone who was a principal back then, and all they could remember was that guy tearing us up. Is that trauma?
Of course.
Deep trauma, I would.
That's big time trauma. And even, if you curse, someone would put what they call it, J's and all that dental and stuff in your mouth. That's big time trauma. And if you weren't a child who wanted to really learn, you would have been turned off from learning, right? Resentment towards the education that you would have been in school for.
I think many of us use that situation just to make sure we got out of there. So we use
Right.
it as
You use
inspiration.
Right. Which in essence can become your roadmap for resilience, right?
Yes.
Only
Mhm.
because of the culture that we come from.
Mhm.
So, the and when I talk about trauma bonding, you see a lot of people will get together and talk about, so remember back in the days when they used to, my mama used to whoop me, your mama used to whoop me, and so we get together because we both have this whooping, experience, and people get together and have this, and then together they in a relationship now, but they can't figure out how to get over their circumstances and their inability to communicate and resolve conflict.
And that's a cubicle I don't want to end up in. All right, so Doc, you find that many people say, I am fine. I have survived worse. Believe in the survival means healing, and it does not. What honest questions should someone ask themselves to determine whether they are truly healed or simply coping? Because there's a difference.
Mm-hmm. For me, is regardless of how you're feeling, are you truly okay? And are the signs that are you seeing signs that you're okay? Because you can say that you're okay, but what are the signs that you're okay? What coping skills do you have that says that you're okay? From the lips, you can say that you're okay, but how do you feel? And what, as I said, what are the coping skills? And what do the people around you say? If we should interview your family, is your family saying, one of the things I do is I do the temperature check for anger. Anger is a big indicator. If your wife or your girlfriend or your children are saying, well, when so and so come home, we can't even talk to him about or her about how they feel. It's just snapping at everybody. That anger is a big indicator that there's other emotions that are going on. So I do the anger iceberg thing. The icebergs is all the other layers of the emotions that's going on. So in essence, if you're saying I'm fine, and a lot of people say I'm fine, but when you do the temperature check, they're not really fine. There's some behavioral issues going on. We can't have conversations. You're just going off. There's some lights, blinkers going off that you're not okay.
I beg to ask the question, who is okay? Who is fine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Loraine, one of the greatest barriers to emotional healing is stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Why is mental health still a whispered conversation in many Black and Caribbean communities? Why is that so?
Shame and guilt.
Mm.
Shame and guilt.
Shopping at Shein often triggers ultra-fast fashion guilt due to documented concerns regarding environmental waste.
We have culture.
Sorry about that. I'm trying to.
Perfectly okay.
Wow, come on.
We're on real time.
Yeah, and you have over there too, I see. Trying to silence my other phone.
Now let's listen before though. We'll deal with that. Mm-hmm.
Shame and guilt. And that has been handed down from generation to generation in our community. We have been taught that to feel, to have emotion, we should be ashamed of our emotion. We should be ashamed to express them. Even as growing up, we should be ashamed to talk about how we feel, mm-hmm. right? And then there's a stigma on emotional wellness, right? On mental health. We should be ashamed to seek them. And so even now, to even have a diagnosis, there's a shame that's put to it. And then it continues on. But on the other side, the other folks, there is no shame. Folks will get up and say, yeah, I have such and such, and it's okay. But we have held on to it and will shame each other about it in our community, right? And then even in the Caribbean, we will give it names. We'll give it a different name, and shun our folks about it. So it has to do with the culture. and what we have chosen to hold on to. And how we have also looked at it and said, well, if this person or this child is born with something, then it means this family did something bad or did something evil, when that's not the case. So it has to do with the history and what we choose to hold on to, not realizing that there's some illnesses that we're just as our high blood pressure, heart disease, where we are most of the time predisposed to that. So education is still is important for us to be exposed and to be accepting, to understand and get this knowledge, to receive it, and not only receive it but to share it, and to continue to obtain it.
And it boils down to education again, and receive it and share it. As you said, cultural expectations in a way encourage people to endure emotional pain silently. The culture. What damage can phrases like "just pray about it" or "be strong"? What damages can those cause when emotional wounds go untreated?
So, as someone who I consider myself a person of faith, it's a big damage, big damage, because I will hear it to myself. For someone who I lost a grandson 40 days after he passed, and I my own daughter was told something very insensitive herself, and I had to pull her together. And even now, she just had he would have celebrated his first birthday, and I know I had to be very careful of how I supported her, not to say, even as a grief therapist, I have to know the right and wrong thing to say. It is a very damaging statement to make to someone. There is no such thing as just pray about it. No such thing. We have to be able to recognize our emotions, and grief is not something you don't get over your loss. You never get over your loss. You never get over the loss of anyone that you love. The fact that you have grief, it says that you loved. It says that whatever you lost, it had value to you. So there's no way you are going to get over it. You will always have grief, some level of grief. And I think that is something that people of faith need to understand. And I remember saying to someone, if you do not know how to what to say to the person, then you need to have some training, so that you feel more comfortable speaking to folks about it. You will always have grief. I always have some form of grief when I think of my parents that I've lost, because I still love them. I still love them, and I will never see them again. But it doesn't mean that I cry all the time. Yes, sometimes there's a tear that automatically comes. So just pray about it, be strong. Yeah, there are days when there's no tear, but be strong about it. That's very damaging. And not only is it damaging, it can cause resentment. And not just resentment towards you, the person who's saying it, but resentment towards God. And a pulling away from the faith that you don't want that to cause. And so what I would say is, before you open your mouth, think about what you want to say. And something about our culture is we always think we got to say something to somebody about when they're I think when you don't know what to say, I think the best thing you can do is to stay quiet, because staying quiet is also a way to support someone. That
Maybe that's all right?
That's what they need. And that's how, for us as grief specialists that are certified, we also stay quiet. We don't always talk. But for people who don't know, they always think they got to say something. You don't always have to say something. Sometimes you say, I'm just going to stay quiet. I'm just going to sit with you and stay quiet, because you don't always have to say anything. you know. So
sometimes quiet is the answer. Some noise. So we're going to take a quick break, then we'll come back. Quick break, we'll come back to this issue, okay?
I'm a boy kid, I'm a boy kid. I'm a boy kid, I'm a boy kid. I wake up in the morning and I praise the Lord. I thank Him for His protection, and I walk in His steps, declaring that today's provision is set up for me. I love God and I love my friends. I'm a bold kid. I'm a bold kid. I'm a bold kid. I put on my armor and I read His word, blessing come out of my mouth, cause I know to whom I belong. I am bold for Christ, Holy Spirit dwelling within me, carrying His presence wherever He sends me. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid. Loving others as He told me to pray for healing, miracles to see, knowing my identity in Christ, He is in me. I am a bold kid, He loves me, standing firm on His word, proclaiming everything I heard, not afraid because He is with me. Be bold. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid. Put on my armor and I read His word, blessing come out of my mouth, because I know to whom I belong. I am bold for Christ, Holy Spirit dwelling within me, carrying His presence wherever He sends me. I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid, I'm a bold kid.
We've all had moments that break us down, searching for light when the world spins round. But in those cracks, the purpose is born, a new way to live when the old is torn. It's more than a story, it's the rise from the fall, a place where your purpose starts to call. With Dr. Stephenson, wisdom takes flight, turning your pain into hope, into light. Collide with purpose, embrace the change. Every story's got a fire in its flame. Tune in, listen, find your way to take life's hardest hits and turn the page. In the podcast, the truth is found. Collide with purpose, let love abound. From heartbreak to strength, the lessons unfold. It's about how we rise, not the stories we've told. Guests with their journeys, sharing their light. In every collision, there's power in sight. It's more than a talk, it's the wisdom we gain through every struggle, through every pain. With conversations that open the door to purpose, to power, to so much more. Collide with purpose, embrace the change. Every story's got a fire in its flame. Tune in, listen, find your way to take life's hardest hits and turn the page. In the podcast, the truth is found. Collide with purpose, let love abound. So come as you are, with your scars and fears. This is the place where the truth appears. Turn your trials into stepping stones. Find the strength to claim your throne. Collide with purpose, embrace the change. Every story's got a fire in its flame. Tune in, listen, find your way to take life's hardest hits and turn the page. In the journey starts here. In every conversation, we'll wipe away fear. Find your purpose, let your life ignite. With Dr. Stephenson, you'll find your light.